The colony town was small, quiet, and far from the busy space stations. Humans and aliens lived side by side, but they did not mix much. The human shopkeeper, Daniel, had a small store near the market street. He sold many simple things. Human items that were rare for aliens but common for him: books, flowers, clothes, small tools, and sometimes food from Earth. His life was calm, even a little boring. He liked it that way, but one evening, something changed. The bell on his door rang, softly, and an alien girl walked in. She looked young, maybe the same age as a human in their early 20s. Her skin had a faint glow, pale blue under the light. Her eyes were large and silver, shining as if they held hidden stars. She wore a long, dark cloak, hiding most of her face. She moved carefully as if she did not want to be noticed. Daniel looked up and gave his usual smile. "Welcome," he said, trying to sound friendly. The alien girl nodded but said nothing. She walked slowly between the shelves, her hands brushing the items. She stopped near the flowers, earth flowers grown in special soil. She leaned close, her silver eyes studying them with strange focus. Then, without warning, she picked up a single white flower. Her fingers trembled as she touched the petals. It was only a flower, but in her hands it seemed heavy, important. Daniel waited, not wanting to scare her. Finally, she turned and placed the flower on the counter. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "How much?" she asked. Daniel told her the price, a small amount, almost nothing. She placed the coins carefully, her hand shaking as if it were a great risk. Then she lifted the flower again, holding it close to her chest. Her eyes met his for one quick second, and in that moment Daniel felt something strange. It was not fear, not anger, but something deep he could not understand. Without another word, she left the store. The bell rang again as the door closed behind her. Daniel stood there, puzzled. It was only a flower, an innocent purchase, so why did it feel like something more had happened? That night Daniel could not sleep. He sat near his window, the flower sale still in his mind. Outside, the colony street was quiet. But then, strange lights appeared in the distance, soft blue lights moving in the darkness. He thought they were patrol drones at first, but the lights moved in patterns like whispers written in the air. He felt a chill. Something was watching him. Later, as the wind grew colder, Daniel heard sounds outside his store. Not footsteps, not voices, but a low, like the sky itself was speaking in secret words. He stepped outside, but the street was empty, only the shadows of buildings and the faint glow of the alien night. Still, the feeling would not leave him. The air was heavy, as if holding a warning. The next morning, the shop was quiet again. Daniel tried to tell himself it was nothing, just his mind playing tricks, but deep down he knew something had started. And it all began with a simple flower. A flower that now connected him to an alien girl he did not even know. Somewhere in the colony, that girl held the flower close, her heart racing, her thoughts tangled. She had crossed a line without meaning to. A human might see it as nothing, but for her people that act was more than purchase. It was a bond, a signal, a silent call. Daniel did not know this yet. He only felt uneasy, curious, and a little afraid. But soon he would learn that his small shop, his simple life, had changed forever. The flower was not just an innocent gift. It was the beginning of something far greater. And someone or something was already watching from the shadows. The sun rose slowly over the colony town, filling the streets with a pale golden light. Daniel opened his store as usual, trying to forget the strange feeling from the night before. He told himself it was just his imagination, just shadows and wind, but deep down he knew something had changed. That afternoon the bell rang again. Daniel looked up and there she was, the same alien girl. Her silver eyes shone softly, her cloak wrapped around her like a shield. She walked to the counter, holding the white flower she had bought. It was still fresh, glowing faintly in her hands as if it had life of its own. Daniel smiled carefully. "Did you want another one?" The girl shook her head, her voice quiet but steady. No, I came to ask. She paused, searching for words. Why do humans sell such things? Daniel was surprised. Flowers? They are just beautiful. They remind us of home. The girl lowered her gaze, touching the petals gently. For us, this is not just beauty, she whispered. It is a sign. Before Daniel could ask more, the bell rang again and 2 aliens entered the store. They did not look at the shelves. They only looked at her. Their faces were serious. Their eyes, sharp like knives. The girl stiffened, clutching the flower close, then she turned quickly and left. Pushing past them without a word, the 2 aliens watched her go, then turned to Daniel. They said nothing, but their cold eyes made his skin crawl. Finally, they left too, following her into the street. Daniel stood frozen, his heart racing. Something was happening here. Something he did not understand. The next day she returned again, this time without the cloak. Her hair was long and silver, falling like threads of light. She moved more carefully now, looking around before entering. Daniel asked softly, "Is everything all right?" She hesitated, then spoke. "Do you know what it means when one of us takes a flower from another?" Daniel shook his head. "No. It is just a gift for us." Her voice dropped lower. "For my people, it is not a gift. It is a bond, a promise, a claim." Daniel stared at her in shock. "I never meant," he began, but she raised her hand. "I know you did not mean, but the act is already done, and now they believe I belong." Her words struck him like a blade. Belong? To him? Over a flower? It sounded impossible, yet the fear in her eyes was real. She placed the flower on the counter, her hands trembling. "I should stay away," she whispered. "But I cannot. Something pulls me here." Outside, footsteps echoed, slow and heavy. Daniel glanced at the window and saw shadows waiting, figures standing at a distance watching the store. The girl saw them too, her face pale. "They are from my clan," she said. "They do not approve. They say this is forbidden." Daniel felt a tight knot in his chest. He wanted to tell her she was free, that nothing tied her to him. But the way she looked at the flower told him it was not so simple. For her, this was not just purchase, not just accident. It was something older, deeper, tied to alien custom. He could not yet understand. That night the strange lights returned. Moving outside his window like restless spirits, he stepped out, his eyes scanning the empty street. On the door of his shop, someone had carved a mark, a circle with 3 lines through it, glowing faint blue. Daniel touched it, and his hand burned as if fire lived in the sign. He pulled back, his heart racing. This was no prank, this was a warning. The next morning, customers came and went, but Daniel felt the weight of hidden eyes everywhere. Every alien who entered seemed to look at him too long. Whispers followed him through the street. He could not understand the words, but he felt the meaning. They knew. They all knew. Late in the day, she came again, her steps quick and urgent. "They will come for you soon," she said, her voice shaking. "You must forget me. Forget the flower, or they will see you as thief, as enemy." Daniel shook his head. "I cannot forget. Not when I see fear in your eyes. Not when I know you are in danger." Her silver eyes widened, soft light trembling inside them. "No human has spoken so before," she whispered almost to herself. For a moment, silence filled the store. Then she turned and left quickly, disappearing into the crowd. Daniel stood there, torn between fear and curiosity. He had wanted a quiet life, but now he was in the middle of something far greater. The flower was not just a flower. The girl was not just a stranger. And the mark on his door told him one truth clearly: he was no longer safe. The colony streets grew restless. Daniel noticed it every time he stepped outside his store. Eyes followed him. Whispers curled in the air like smoke. He could not understand the alien words, but he felt their weight. The flower had tied him to something he did not want, and the alien girl, Lyra was at the center of it. That night, Daniel closed the shop early. He walked through the dim market, passing stalls filled with glowing fruits and metal charms. The aliens avoided his gaze now or stared too long. It was as if he carried a mark on his forehead. When he returned home, the mark on his door still glowed faintly. It pulsed like a living scar. He tried to wash it off, but the lines burned his skin again. It would not fade. Later, as he tried to sleep, he heard voices outside. Not loud, not clear, but low, secret whispers. They spoke his name, Daniel, again and again. His blood turned cold. He looked from the window and saw shadows moving across the street, figures standing together watching his door. When he blinked, they were gone, but the whispers stayed, a warning carried by the night air. The next morning, Lyra entered his store again. Her face was pale, her steps hurried. "You should not be here alone," she said, her voice trembling. Daniel frowned. "What do you mean? This is my home." She shook her head. "Not anymore. You are no longer just a human shopkeeper. You are part of their talk, their fear, their anger." Daniel leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Tell me the truth, Lyra. What does the flower really mean? Why does your clan watch me like I am thief?" She looked at him with wide silver eyes, her hands gripping the counter. "In my people's law, the flower is sacred. It is never taken lightly. When I held it, it meant I accepted you." Daniel froze, the words sinking into him like heavy stones. "Accepted me? For what?" Her voice dropped lower. "For bond, for life, for claim." Daniel stepped back, shaking his head. "I never asked for this. I never wanted." She cut him off, her voice breaking. I know you did not mean it, but the bond is already alive, and now my clan sees you as threat, as danger." The bell rang suddenly, sharp and loud. 3 alien men stepped inside, tall and cloaked. Their eyes were cold silver, their skin glowing faint blue. The leader pointed at Daniel and spoke in a voice that shook the shelves. "Human, your steps cross a forbidden path. You have touched what is not yours." Daniel's heart pounded. Lyra stepped forward quickly. "It was my act, not his," she cried. "I chose the flower. I made the mistake." The leader's gaze hardened. "You shame your blood, Lyra. The bond cannot be broken. The human must answer." They left as suddenly as they came, leaving, the air heavy with threat. Lyra turned to Daniel, tears shining in her eyes. "They will not stop. They will come again. And next time they will not speak. They will act." Daniel felt a strange fire inside him. He had always been quiet, careful, keeping away from trouble. But now trouble had chosen him. And Lyra, fragile and trembling, looked at him as if he were her only shield. He could not turn away. That night, the whispers returned stronger. He heard them circling his store, voices, hissing like wind through broken glass. Sometimes they called his name, sometimes they spoke in alien words that pressed against his chest. When he stepped outside, the street was empty, but the air carried the smell of burning metal. On the air, ground near his door, lay a small shard, a piece of alien crystal glowing faint blue. He picked it up and felt heat in his hand. A vision flashed in his mind, Lyra bound in chains of light, her silver eyes full of sorrow. He dropped the shard in shock, his breath heavy. It melted into the dirt like it had never been there. The next day, Lyra returned once more. Her face was pale, but her voice firm. "My clan whispers that you are cursed, that you will bring ruin," she said. "But I do not believe them." Daniel searched her eyes, trying to understand. "Why? Come back then? Why risk this?" She held the flower close to her chest. "Because the bond pulls me. I feel it in my blood, and so do they, but they twist it into fear." Daniel sighed, his chest tight. "I only sold a flower, but now it feels like I have sold my soul." Lyra reached out, her hand brushing his. "Perhaps not sold," she whispered. "Perhaps chosen." Silence filled the store, heavy and sharp. Then outside, a loud sound broke the moment. A horn echoed through the colony streets, deep and endless. Lyra's face went pale. "They are calling the council," she said, her voice shaking. Her silver eyes met Daniel's, full of fear and secret hope. "They will judge you," she whispered, "and judgment is never kind." The horn still echoed in Daniel's mind. That night, the colony streets were filled with silence heavier than stone. No voices, no trade, no laughter. Only the sound. Of boots moving in the distance, the alien council had spoken, and everyone felt its weight. Daniel stayed inside his shop, his hands tight on the counter. He did not know what the council would decide, but he knew danger was close. Then, near midnight, the bell rang softly. Lyra stepped inside, her cloak drawn tight, her face pale. Her silver eyes flickered like starlight in shadow. "You should not be here," Daniel said in a low voice. "They will be watching. They will see you." Lyra shook her head. "I had to come. There is little time. They prepare for judgment." Daniel frowned. "Judgment? For what? I only sold you a flower." Lyra's voice trembled. "You do not understand. To them the flower is not an object, it is life, it is vow. When I took it, I marked you as mine and myself as yours, and now the elders fear what that bond could mean." Daniel stared at her, his chest tight. "But I never asked for this, I never wanted." Her hand touched his arm, soft but firm. "I know, and yet it has already begun." For a moment, silence filled the store, broken only by the hum of alien lamps outside. Then she leaned closer, whispering, "They say a human cannot carry the bond. They say it will break both worlds, but I want to believe they are wrong." Daniel's heart beat fast, fear and curiosity mixing inside him. He wanted to push her away, to close his door and forget, but something in her eyes held him still, something that felt older than both of them. Suddenly, the bell rang again, sharp and loud. Daniel froze, his body tense. But it was only a small child, human, buying bread for his family. The boy looked at Lyra, wide-eyed, then ran out quickly as if sensing danger. Lyra exhaled, her hands shaking. "They will take me if they see me here. They will call me traitor," Daniel whispered. "Then why come?" Her silver eyes burned with quiet fire. "Because I would rather risk being traitor than lose this chance to understand." That night, Daniel closed his shop earlier than usual. He walked to the edge of the colony, where the forest began. The air was cool, filled with the sound of glowing insects and soft alien winds. There, beneath a tree with silver leaves, Lyra waited. Her cloak shimmered in the dim light. "You came," she whispered, her voice carrying both relief and fear. Daniel nodded. "You asked, and I could not refuse." They sat together in the shadows, away from eyes and whispers. She told him stories of her people, stories humans were never meant to hear. She spoke of the flower's history, how long ago it was part of a prophecy, a bond between two different beings that would unite or destroy. Her voice was soft, but the words felt heavy as stone. Daniel listened, his mind racing. It sounded like myth, like old legends humans told children at night. And yet, the look in her eyes, the way her hands trembled, made it real. "Do you believe this prophecy?" he asked. Her silver eyes lowered. "I do not know, but my people believe, and belief can be more dangerous than truth." A sudden rustle broke the moment. Daniel turned, his eyes scanning the trees. Figures moved in the shadows, faint lights glowing between the branches. Lyra grabbed his hand, her whisper sharp. "They followed us." Voices carried through the forest, low, angry, speaking in her language Daniel could not understand. But the tone was clear. Hate, warning, threat. He pulled Lyra deeper into the shadows. They ran through the trees, the silver leaves glowing as they brushed past. Behind them, the voices grew louder, closer, until finally they reached an old ruin hidden in the woods, broken stone walls overgrown with alien vines. Inside, the air was cooler, filled with silence. "This is where I hide when I need silence," Lyra whispered, her hand still gripping his. "No one comes here, not even my clan." Daniel caught his breath, his chest heavy. Why risk so much for me? You could walk away. Her eyes shone in the dim light. Because walking away would mean killing a part of myself, and I cannot. The words struck him harder than the danger outside. He had never asked for this bond, never sought it. Yet, here he was, standing in an alien ruin with a girl who believed they were bound by fate. He should have been afraid, and he was. But another feeling had begun to grow, quiet and dangerous. Curiosity. Before he could answer, a sound echoed from the woods, the deep call of a horn louder than before. Lyra's face went pale. They know, she whispered. The council knows we meet in secret. Daniel's heart sank. He looked at the silver-eyed girl before him, then at the ruins that seemed to breathe with ancient stories. And he realized there was no turning back. Whatever bond had been formed, whatever danger it carried, he was now part of it, for better or worse. The next morning, the colony was not the same. Drums echoed through the streets, slow and heavy. Shops closed, stalls covered, voices silenced. Everyone moved toward the great hall at the center of the colony. The council had called for judgment. Daniel stood outside his store, his stomach tight. He had never seen the great hall, only heard whispers. A place where decisions stronger than law were made. Now he was to stand inside it, not as guest, but as accused. Lyra found him before the guards. Arrived, her silver eyes were full of sorrow and fire. They will not listen, she whispered. But you must speak. Speak with truth. Speak with courage. For they test your heart more than your words. Daniel nodded, though fear pressed heavy on his chest. Moments later, alien guards with glowing armor surrounded him. Their faces showed no anger, only cold duty. They led him through the streets while the crowd whispered and pointed. Some stared with pity, others with hate. Daniel walked with his head high, though every step felt heavier than stone. The great hall rose before him, a tower of black stone and silver veins. Inside it was vast and silent. Tall chairs carved from crystal stood in a circle, each holding a council elder. Their eyes glowed silver, their faces stern. The crowd filled the edges of the hall, watching. Waiting, Daniel stood in the center, a small figure in the endless space. The eldest elder spoke, his voice deep like thunder. Human, you are called here because you have broken a sacred line. You carry a bond that is not yours. You have touched what must never be touched. Daniel's voice shook, but he forced himself to speak. I sold a flower, nothing more. I did not know your ways, the hall murmured. Some voices angry, others doubtful. Lyra stepped forward, her cloak falling to the ground. It was me, she cried, her voice trembling but strong. I chose the flower, I touched it, I made the bond. Do not punish him for my act. The elders turned their cold eyes to her. You speak truth, but truth does not change law. One elder said, the bond is made, and it ties him as much as you. Daniel clenched his fists, anger rising through the fear. Then punish me if you must. But do not call me thief. I never stole her. I never forced her. I only showed kindness. Is that crime in your law? The crowd murmured louder now. Voices split between anger and curiosity. One elder leaned forward, his voice sharp as a blade. Kindness is not crime, but bond is not kindness. Bond is power, and power can destroy. Another elder raised her hand. There is prophecy old as the stars. It tells of a bond between human and our kind. A bond that will bring either union or ruin. Perhaps this is that bond. The hall grew tense, the words spreading like fire. Some nodded in fear, others shook their heads. Daniel felt every eye burning into him. He wanted to deny it, to shout. It was nonsense. But deep in his chest he remembered the vision from the crystal shard. Lyra in chains, silver light burning, and himself standing beside her. Was it only a trick, or was it truth waiting to happen? The eldest elder stood, his crystal staff glowing faint blue. The council must decide, he said. Human, will you break the bond and leave, or will you claim it and face the path it brings? The hall fell silent, every voice waiting. Lyra's eyes locked with his, wide and trembling. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came. Daniel's chest ached. fear and anger twisting inside him. To walk away meant safety, but it also meant leaving her to shame and punishment. To claim the bond meant facing exile, danger, maybe even death. He raised his voice steady, though his hands shook. I did not choose this bond, but I will not abandon her if you judge me. Judge me for standing with her, not against her. Gasps spread through the hall. Some shouted in anger, others whispered in awe. The eldest elder's face darkened. Then so it shall be, he said. The bond is accepted, but it is curse as much as vow. From this day forward, you are no longer. Of your kind alone you are bound to her fate, wherever it leads. The staff struck the floor, sending a wave of light through the hall. Daniel felt the bond tighten in his chest, a weight and a warmth. Lyra clutched his arm, tears shining in her eyes. You did not have to, she whispered. I did, he answered softly, because walking away is not who I am. But the elders were not finished. The eldest raised his staff again. Your bond may bring ruin, and we cannot risk it. You are banished from this colony. Leave before the next dawn, or face death. The hall erupted in noise, shouts, cries, gasps. Guards stepped forward, but the elders raised their hands. Let them leave. Let fate follow them. Daniel and Lyra stood together in the center, the weight of hundreds of eyes pressing down. Exile, danger, prophecy, all waiting outside those walls, and yet for the first time, Daniel felt clear. The quiet shopkeeper was gone. Now he was something else, bound to a destiny he never asked for but could no longer refuse. The night was heavy with silence. The colony's streets were empty, every window closed, every door locked. No one wished to be seen near Daniel and Lyra now. They were marked, cursed by the council's judgment. By dawn they had to leave or face death. Daniel packed what little he could carry from the store: food, water, a small toolkit, and one old earth book. As he closed the door, his eyes lingered on the shelves he had once cared for. The life of a quiet shopkeeper was gone, replaced by something unknown. Lyra waited outside, her cloak pulled tight, her silver eyes glowing faint in the darkness. They watch the gates, she whispered. We cannot leave by road. We must go through the forest. They moved quickly, their steps soft against the stone streets. Every shadow felt alive. Every corner held unseen eyes. When they reached the edge of the colony, Daniel glanced back one last time. The town looked peaceful under the alien moon, but he knew behind those walls was fear, anger, and whispers of prophecy. He turned away, following Lyra into the dark forest. The forest was unlike anything Daniel had known. Silver-leafed trees rose tall. Glowing insects floated like sparks. The ground was soft, covered with blue moss that hummed faintly when stepped on. The air carried strange scents, sweet and sharp at once. It was beautiful, but also alive in ways that made him uneasy. Lyra led the way with quick steps. She seemed to know the forest paths, though her eyes never stopped scanning the shadows. They will send hunters, she said quietly. They will not allow us to escape so easily. Daniel tightened the strap of his pack. Then we must stay ahead, he said, though fear pressed heavy on his chest. Hours passed and the forest grew darker. Strange calls echoed in the distance. Not human, not alien, but something wild. Daniel kept close to Lyra, trusting her steps. Finally, they reached a clearing where broken stone walls rose from the earth, ancient ruins covered in vines that glowed faintly in the moonlight. This place, Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. This is older than my people, older than the colony. It is where the prophecy was first spoken. Daniel frowned. You brought me here on purpose. She nodded, her silver eyes bright. I had to. You must see the truth for yourself. Only then will you understand why they fear you. Inside, the ruins, symbols covered the walls, glowing softly when touched. Daniel ran his fingers across one carving, and the stone warmed under his hand. The shapes told a story, though not in words he knew. Figures of two beings stood side by side, one human, one alien. Around them, the world burned, and then shone with light, union or ruin, as the elders had said. Daniel stepped back, his heart racing. "So it is true," he whispered. "They believe we are the ones from this prophecy." Lyra nodded, her voice soft. "Yes, and belief gives them power to act whether the prophecy is real or not." Before Daniel could answer, a sharp crack echoed through the ruins, branches breaking, footsteps heavy and fast. Lyra's eyes widened. "They found us." Figures moved at the edge of the clearing, hunters cloaked in armor that glowed faint blue. Their weapons hummed with energy. The sound sharp in the night. Daniel grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her deeper into the ruins. Stones crumbled under their feet as they ran, the hunters' voices calling out in her language, harsh and commanding. They hid behind a broken arch. Breathing fast, Daniel whispered, "We cannot outrun them." Lyra looked at the carvings glowing around them, her face pale but fierce. "Maybe we do not need to run," she said. "Maybe the ruins will protect us if the bond is true." She pressed her hand against one of the glowing symbols. The stone pulsed with light, spreading across the walls like fire. Daniel felt a heat in his chest, the same warmth he had felt when the council's staff struck the ground. The bond, alive and burning. The hunters stepped into the clearing, their weapons raised, but the ruins answered with a wave of light. The carvings glowed brighter. The ground shook. A wall of energy rose between Daniel, Lyra, and the hunters. The hunters shouted in shock, striking the barrier, but their weapons only sparked against the light. Daniel stared in awe. "It's real," he whispered. "The prophecy, it's real." Lyra's hand tightened on his, her silver eyes shining. "Yes, and now they will never stop hunting us, not until they know if we bring ruin or union." The barrier began to fade, the glow sinking back into the stones. Lyra pulled him deeper into the ruins. "There is a temple hidden within, a place where the prophecy was born. We must reach it before they trap us." They ran through broken halls and shadowed arches, the hunters' voices fading behind them. But never far. Finally, they entered a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness. At the center stood an ancient altar carved with both human and alien shapes. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. How could this exist before humans ever came here? Lyra's voice trembled. "That is the mystery. That is why they fear our worlds were tied long before we knew, and we are only the thread pulled loose." Daniel stepped closer to the altar, his hand brushing its surface. A spark leapt from the stone to his skin. Visions flooded his mind, flashes of battles, fire, and then peace. A human and an alien standing together, their hands joined, the world reshaped. He pulled back, gasping, his body shaking. Lyra touched his shoulder, her face full of both fear and hope. "What did you see?" she asked. Daniel met her eyes, his voice unsteady. "I saw choice, Lyra. Only choice." The hunters' voices echoed again. Closer now. The ruins would not protect them forever, but Daniel knew the truth had been revealed. And now the path ahead was clear. They could no longer run from the prophecy. They had to decide if they would fight it or embrace it. The temple chamber was silent except for the faint hum of glowing carvings. Daniel stood before the altar, his breath heavy, his mind still burning with visions. Beside him, Lyra held the white flower close, her silver eyes full of fear and hope. They both knew the hunters were near, their voices echoing through the broken halls. Every step brought danger closer, but the altar waited, its power alive. Daniel pressed his palm against the ancient stone once more. Light spread beneath his hand, symbols glowing like fire. He felt the bond in his chest tighten, warm and sharp. Lyra placed her hand over his, and the light doubled, filling the chamber with brilliance. Together, human and alien, their touch awakened the temple. The ground shook, dust falling from the ceiling, carvings on the walls shifted, showing scenes of past and future. Daniel saw humans and aliens standing together, their worlds united. But then the vision twisted, showing war, fire and ruins, union or ruin. The choice hung in the air like a blade. Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. "This is what they fear. This is why they hunt us. The prophecy does not promise peace. It only promises change." Daniel turned to her, his jaw tight. Then the choice is ours, not theirs. We decide what this bond means. Before she could answer, the hunters stormed into the chamber. Their armor glowed, weapons humming with deadly energy. The leader stepped forward, his voice echoing. "Step away from the altar, human. You defy the council and the law. End this bond or end your life." Daniel's heart pounded, fear clawing at him. But Lyra moved closer, standing between him and the hunters. "No," she said, her voice steady. "The bond is real and it cannot be broken by threat." The leader raised his weapon, aiming at Daniel, but the altar flared with light, sending a shockwave across the chamber. The hunters staggered, shielding their eyes. Daniel felt the bond surge like fire through his veins. Visions returned, sharper now, showing him two paths. One where he let go, walked away, leaving Lyra to shame and punishment. Another where he stood firm, claimed the bond, and faced unknown fate. Both paths carried danger, both carried loss. Lyra grabbed his hand, her voice breaking. "Daniel, you must choose. I cannot hold this alone. If you release me, I will fall if you hold me. We face everything together." Daniel's chest ached with the weight of it. He thought of his quiet shop, the simple life he had lost. He thought of the whispers, the warnings, the council's judgment. And then he looked at Lyra, frightened, brave, her silver eyes shining with trust. He knew his answer. He stepped forward, raising his voice so the hunters and the temple itself would hear. "I choose her. I choose the bond, whatever it brings. I will not turn away." The altar blazed with light brighter than the alien moon. The ground shook. The walls hummed like living thunder. The hunters cried out, their weapons useless against the power. The bond wrapped around Daniel and Lyra like threads of fire and light. Not chains, not prison, but connection, alive and unbreakable. The leader of the hunters fell to his knees, his voice sharp with fear. "It begins," he whispered. "The prophecy begins." Some hunters fled, others dropped their weapons. None could face the light filling the chamber. Daniel felt the bond settle inside him. No longer only weight, but strength. Lyra leaned against him, tears glowing on her cheeks. "You chose," she whispered. "And so did I." The altar dimmed slowly, the carvings fading back into stone. But the bond remained alive in their hearts. The hunters retreated, their fear stronger than their duty. Only silence and dust remained in the temple. Daniel looked around, his breath steady now. "We are still here," he said, almost in disbelief. Lyra nodded, her silver eyes soft. "Yes, but nothing will ever be the same. They will chase us. They will fear us, but also, some may follow us." Daniel thought of the visions, the burning world, the united world, both possible. The prophecy did not promise peace, only choice, and they had chosen. They walked out of the ruins as the alien dawn broke across the forest. The silver trees shimmered in the new light. Behind them, the temple stood quiet as if it had only been dream. Ahead of them lay exile, danger, and unknown paths. But Daniel felt no fear now. For the first time, he felt purpose. He glanced at Lyra, the flower still held close to her heart. An innocent purchase. A bond born from chance. Yet now it carried the power to change two worlds. Lyra met his gaze and smiled faintly. "Together," she whispered. Daniel nodded, his voice firm. Together, the forest opened before them, endless and waiting. Their journey was only beginning, and somewhere in the shadows, whispers of prophecy followed, not just of danger, but of hope,